This is the Sri Ramana Maharshi satsang, a time to listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke. I'm not a guru or a teacher. I love this teaching, so want to share it. I'm reading and commenting on the book day by day with Bhagavan. This week is from March 31st, 1945. It seems a visitor, the Raja of Shivagar in UP, told Bhagavan that he had surrendered himself to Bhagavan, and Bhagavan should give him jnana. Bhagavan referred to an article in Namadev's insistence on the importance of the Lord's name in the September 1937 issue of Vision, where it pointed out that only when the I, the ego, is surrendered, the significance of the Lord's name will be realized. When I entered the hall, the story of how Ashtavakra Gita came to be taught was being recounted in English for the benefit of the above Raja and other visitors. After the story was read out, Bhagavan said, because Brahmayana is not something external, which is somewhere far away where you can go and get it, you cannot say that it will take so long or so short a time to attain it. It is always with you. You are that. The story of Ashtavakra Gita is intended to teach that for getting Brahmayana, all that is necessary is to surrender yourself completely to the Guru, to surrender your notion of I and mine. If these are surrendered, what remains is the reality. Then it becomes impossible to state what further time it would take to attain Brahmayana. It would be wrong to state that it takes as much time as a man would require to put his other foot into the second stirrup after having placed one foot in the first stirrup. The moment when ego is completely surrendered, the self shines. Proceeding, Bhagavan quoted the last two lines of the following stanza from Yoga Vasishta, which states that unless the cloud of the I, or ego sense, which covers the moon of the divine consciousness is removed, the lily of the heart, which knows nothing of the sense of I, will not open out in full bloom. Bhagavan also added, we have to contend against age-long samskaras. They will all go, only they go comparatively soon in the case of those who have already made sadhana in the past, and late in the case of others. In this connection, I ask, do these samskaras go gradually, or will they suddenly disappear one day? I ask this because though I have remained fairly long here, I do not perceive any gradual change in me. Bhagavan asked, when the sun rises, does the darkness go gradually or all at once? In this dialogue, the Raja of Shivagar expresses his surrender to Bhagavan and requests jhana, spiritual knowledge. Ramana responds by referring to an article on Namadev's emphasis on the importance of chanting the Lord's name. The key insight shared is that the true significance of the Lord's name is realized only when the ego, the I, is completely surrendered. As Ramana usually does, he uses an element in the questioner's question to redirect him towards self-inquiry. The ego is the sense of existing as an individual, separate from and interacting with the world. The ego is just an idea, an assumption we made early in the life of the body and never challenged. The mind then orients itself around this ego and sees everything in its relationship with the ego. Bhagavan then draws on the teaching of the Ashravaka Gita, which says that Brahmayana, the knowledge of the ultimate reality, the knowledge of Brahman, is not something external or distant. Instead, it is always present within yourself. Ramana doesn't say this, but he can't give it to the Raja since it is already within. To attain this knowledge, he tells the Raja that he must surrender the ego and the sense of mind. Bhagavan says the moment the ego is entirely surrendered, the self, the ultimate reality, shines forth. What is realized is timeless, and so it's impossible to tell how much time it would take to attain Brahmayana. The ego shows itself as I and mine. Since the ego is just an idea, so then are I and mine. Holding to these ideas, you can't see past them. Then, quoting from the Yoga Vasishta, Ramana adds that the cloud of the I, or the ego sense, must be removed to reveal the moon of divine consciousness. This metaphor illustrates that the true nature of the self is obscured by the ego, and through surrender, this veil can be lifted. Ramana notes that you must contend against age-long samskaras, deep-seated impressions or conditionings, and their dissolution varies, happening relatively quickly for those who have engaged in past spiritual practices and more gradually for others. Ego can be dissolved in two ways: by surrender, as discussed here, by releasing the idea of I and mine, or by self-inquiry, when you discover that the ego was never real to begin with. Samskaras are past impression. Samskaras are the accumulated imprints from past actions and experiences. When these impressions are triggered, they give rise to desires, or tendencies, vasanas. Vasanas, in turn, drive you to engage in actions that reinforce and deepen the existing samskaras. The relationship between samskaras and vasanas is cyclical. Actions driven by vasanas create new impressions, which in turn strengthen desires and tendencies. You can break this cycle by inquiry and deep knowledge about the source of happiness. The vasana, the tendency, is based on a misidentification and an associated idea of happiness. For example, if, say, you misidentify as a body and think that chocolate makes the body happy, then you will have a chocolate vasana, desiring chocolate to make you happy. You can break the cycle of the vasanas by inquiring, am I really a body? And investigating, where does happiness really come from? When you discover that lasting happiness really comes from within, not from objects of the world, the vasana loses power. Dealing with and quieting vasanas is key to self-realization. As long as you hold to them, while you may have deep meditations and spiritual experiences, they're only temporary. Vasanas will assert themselves and pull you back. The question about whether samskaras disappear suddenly or gradually prompts Bhagavan to ask, when the sun rises, does the darkness go gradually or all at once? This analogy suggests that the dispelling of ignorance, represented by darkness, can be instantaneous, like the sudden dispelling of darkness when the sun rises. This dialogue underscores the importance of sincere surrender, the realization of the ever-present nature of Brahmajnana, and the gradual dissolution of samskaras through this surrender. It emphasizes that the spiritual journey involves transcending the ego and realizing the timeless truth of your own nature. So inquire, know yourself, and be always free and at peace. Richard is going to be joining us, and we'll have a talk from Nome on I and mine.
The scriptures, such as the Upanishads and others, declare that to be endowed with the conceptions of I and mine constitutes bondage, while being without the conceptions of I and mine constitutes liberation. What does it mean? Does it mean that there are two states for the self, bondage and liberation? No, it does not mean that. The self, which is of the nature of being, consciousness, bliss, is invariable, without conditions, without states, and undergoes no change. Therefore, it is the abiding reality, and it is absolute in nature, not in relation to anything else. So it cannot be described, in truth, in terms of being bound or liberated. But when you imagine that your existence, which is infinite, formless, and undifferentiated, is some kind of entity, an I, such is bondage. And when you claim something as your own, my, mine, such is bondage. When there is the conception, I am what I think, I am the body, I am the one who senses, I am the experiencer, and so forth and so on. Such is bondage, superimposed merely by imagination upon your real identity, which is existence, consciousness, bliss. When you imagine, these are my thoughts, my memories, my ideas, my experiences, my body, my sensing, my world, my objects, and so forth. Such is imagined bondage, superimposed on the abiding reality. Whose bondage is it? If we inquire as to that, as the Maharshi reveals, both the bondage and the one who is bound, being unreal, vanish. The I that is bound is as imaginary as the bondage which he can claim as his. What then is liberation? From the position or perspective of there actually existing a bound one, one's own natural state, or being itself, is regarded as a state of liberation, as if it were something other, to whatever degree, even slight, than oneself. This is because the identity has been falsely taken up as the bound individual, the I, who can have my state of bondage and my state of liberation. The view for liberation pertains to truth, but the stand as the individual is entirely false. If you inquire, who is it that appears as the individual? The individuality, being only superimposed by imagination, disappears. And what was previously regarded as the state of liberation is self-revealed as the very nature of your own being. Therefore, to be free from bondage, to attain liberation, what is required is the deepest knowledge of your own existence. It is in this knowledge of your own existence that we can say that there is no bondage to be destroyed and no liberation to be attained. What is pivotal in the inquiry is the examination of the one who would experience either of these states. When I say either of these states, it includes all possibilities of states, for any other state different from liberation should be regarded as bondage, some kind of limitation. whether it's waking, dreaming, sleeping, or any mode of mind. Who is it within you that feels I? Who is it within you that can say, mine? Even to the extent that we regard something as existing apart from ourselves and do not exercise a gross form of possession over it, still it is my experience, my perception. Who is it that says mine? If the false conceptions of I and mine are destroyed, liberation is revealed. It is as if that which is eternally free gets free again. Well, it has always been free. The wrong identity ceases. And the nature of existence, the self, which is eternally the same, knows itself. Your nature is the formless being, the space-like consciousness, the uncaused bliss. Your nature is the self, Brahman, and nothing less, nothing other. If your experience seems to be otherwise, examine the you or the your in that experience. And imagination will vanish. The reality will remain.
All right, and now we're going to take some time to inquire. Notice that you exist. You exist, and you know that you exist. Now, inquire, investigate within yourself. What is my concept of I and mine? The ego is known. Who knows it? Do I experience the self as always present within me? What within you is always present? Just notice what is always there. What samskaras, impressions, and vasanas, tendencies, am I contending with? Is my perception of personal change gradual or sudden? Who am I? What is the nature of my existence? What actually exists? Right. And let us close with a chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Hello, Richard. I'm sorry I was asleep at the switch and didn't let you in fast enough.
It was just right, just to hear Nome.
Right. That's what's important.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I was late because involved again with helping Venezuelan people, and we finally moved this one family into a nicer place than they were before.
Very good.
Richard, this Alice is our friend from here. She's been a spiritual friend for a while, and we finally got her online here.
She used to go to a satsang some at my house.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Nice to meet you, Alice.
There she
Okay,
is. Hi,
now
Alice.
I am,
Hey.
You're on.
yes. I have been absent from the group for so long, and yet as soon as Richard started to talk, I was right back there again.
Excellent.
I don't know if it's your voice, but it's the presence that your voice brings in.
Well, that presence is Ramana. It's not mine.
That's right. Ramana is
Well,
with us.
yeah, right. And it isn't you and it isn't me.
That's
It's
right.
not the you that I know, and it's not the me that I know. It's the reality, that we can be very close to the reality for a few minutes.
Right.
Yep.
And we're
Yes.
actually, once we notice, we're never apart.
That's right.
The thing
We
about
never were. We never were apart.
yes,
We keep hanging on to that belief, and in fact, it's like pinching the hose that carries the oxygen to you.
yes.
But
And
we keep doing it.
and one
Yeah.
of the things about reality is always real.
We're not used to that.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, yes. Anyway, it's
Except
What's
we came from reality.
yes. And we
We
are
brought
in reality and we go to reality. Yes. That's very good.
and there is reality. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, thank you all for coming together today. It is a blessing that we're able to share this. So namaste.
Namaste, namaste.
Namaste. See you next week.
These videos bring Ramana's teachings into your direct experience. Click subscribe to see more. Click thumbs up to like, and send questions and start a dialogue with a comment.